Corey. Welcome to my channel and to this video. And this video is going to be about pinky problems and pinky solutions. And I'm particularly passionate about this issue because I had an incorrect, or maybe it would be better to say, a not ideal positioning of my pinky for probably the first 8 years that I played violin, which would have been like from when I was like 8 years old to 16 years old. So first, it's probably best to talk about what pinky positions really don't work, with a few disclaimers. So first disclaimer, I have pretty long fingers for a girl. I'm very tall, and I'm kind of long, like my fingers are long. And I would say my hands are like big enough, So a lot of women have much smaller hands than me. I have one student in particular who is like 17 and her hands are probably like up to here on mine. They're extremely tiny. So she doesn't really have much luck with curving her pinky, which is what I'm going to talk about. But doesn't mean it's impossible. It's just a lot harder. So yeah, first things that you don't want to do with your pinky. Definitely, you don't want to have a straight pinky. So when you put your pinky down, you don't want that to happen. You don't want it to be straight. There's a few reasons for that. First of all, when I'm doing this, my finger, though I'm putting it on the D string, it's also touching the A string. So when I pluck the A string, you can't really, you can't hear the A string. So like the A string isn't open, which when you play a fourth finger, ideally what you would really like all the time is for the string above it to ring along with the note you're playing. So when I play that fourth finger on the D string, which is A, which is the same note as open A, which is why the A string would ring when you play it. Yeah, I'm not touching the A string right now. So you hear a nice ringing, a beautiful sound. Now, by contrast, if I did the flat pinky, even though it could be in tune, it sounds a bit dead. Doesn't have that extra ring. So yeah, being able to put your finger on just one string at a time is really important for producing an overall nice sound and a good tone. The other reason that doesn't work is it's not like a quick way to put your finger down. It's not a strong way to put your finger down. It's hard to do vibrato with that, Which should be compared to. Which still isn't as nice as my other fingers, but whatever. So yeah, this really is not good. Now, the next level up from that is locking your pinky, which is what I did up until the age of 16. So locking your pinky looks like that. So as you can hopefully see, this joint, there's two joints in your finger, okay? There's the joint that's closest to the tip of your finger, and there's the joint that's closer to the hand right here. When your pinky locks, you'll find that this joint is what goes straight. So hopefully you can see that. And then this joint has to bend a lot more. So that you're able to still do that and not touch the other strings. So that's one benefit to that position. But it causes a lot of tension in the finger. And it's a very weak way to use your pinky. If you can just look at it, like you can see that my pinky looks very different from my other fingers. It doesn't look curved. It doesn't really have that same strength to it. And it's reaching quite a bit. So it's reaching. That's actually why the pinky would lock, is because it has to reach really far and the curve kind of buckles under the pressing of the finger. And, I still do lock my pinky if I'm doing a really big stretch. Like sometimes with tenths, I have to lock it. Other stretches I can't think of, but occasionally I do still resort to that as, a last resort. But for just staying in one position, curving your pinky works so much better. It's such a stronger way of doing it. And, my backstory with that, when I was about 16, I was wondering why my pinky was so weak and why it was hard to use my pinky, why that finger was the least consistent of all my fingers. And I YouTubed some videos on that, and I found one that was really, really helpful. And the guy was talking about curving your pinky, which to me was a completely novel concept. No one had ever told me that. And I actually tried it. I remember I put my finger down on the G string, and I tried curving it, which I was able to do, which is a good thing, because not everyone can do it right away if they're not used to it. But I was able to do it, and I remember thinking to myself, this feels so weird that there's no way it's possible to do this all the time. It just couldn't be possible. And for about a month after that, switching from locked pinky to curved pinky, my pinky was kind of useless because I was transitioning. So what would happen is I'd put the finger down and it would kind of freak out and not know what to do because it was in between locking and curving, and it wasn't really totally 100% used to curving. But eventually I transitioned, and over time it got a lot stronger, and I noticed a big improvement in my intonation, in my finger strength. Vibrato is also helped by having a curved finger because it's more relaxed and the joints can move more freely. And it's okay if you don't know vibrato if you're watching this, but yeah, it does help with that. So I'm very passionate about pinky curving because, yeah, it just makes life so much easier if you're able to do it. Now that being said, like I mentioned, people that have small hands, it can be very hard to curve your pinky. And now I'm going to discuss what makes curving the pinky easier. So there's a couple things, but I think the biggest thing is we're told so much not to do pizza hand, to not do this, that very often, and I did this as a teacher when I was first teaching, very often we think that we need to push our hand back here, okay? So that would be like the opposite of this, right? All the way back. Nowhere near pizza hand. Well, the problem with that is your hand gets very far away. It's close to the first finger and even the second and third finger, but then the pinky, hopefully you can see, the pinky needs to stretch now. And I would not be able to curve my pinky from that hand position. It's just impossible, even though I have long fingers. So I really believe it's the positioning of the hand that causes a locking pinky. And this is actually something I've realized in recent, maybe past 2 years of teaching violin. Pushing your hand forward, and I'll explain what I mean by that, but instead of being back here, being more up this way, makes it easier for the pinky to reach. And particularly, we have 2 contact points in the left hand, the one that does stuff over here. We have the thumb, and I touch with this part of my thumb. I know some violinists don't. They kind of go up a little higher, but that's what I do. I touch here. And I also touch around here, and this is the contact point I want to talk about. So when our hand is kind of back here, the way we don't want it, that contact point is pretty far back. If you had a first tape on your violin, you would notice that that contact point is kind of far back from that first tape, which we don't want. And like I said, that produces a lot of stretching in the pinky. Now, if you take that contact point, I like to do this with the first finger down if you've never done it before, because it kind of keeps your fingers in the right place, but it moves the hand up. So it's not actually a shift, it's just shifting up the hand position. So what I like to do is put that first finger down and then scoot the hand up itself as close as I can get without moving the finger. So without actually shifting, I just take the hand and I move it forward, and you'll notice that your finger, it kind of starts to make a box shape, a square, whereas before it was more of a trapezoid. So you kind of come forward, and you'll also notice now your wrist is truly straight. If it's back here, it's bent a little bit that way. And if it's doing pizza hand, it's bent that way. But if you come up like this, now your wrist is truly straight, which is what we're always told to do, right? Straight wrist. And then my pinky, there's just a beautiful balance. You can see the wrist supports the pinky more, and it still supports these fingers. Basically the first finger is now needing to stretch back, which before it probably didn't need to do. It was just kind of right there. But that's actually fine for the first finger. It doesn't cause any problems. So that is the biggest help that I've found, is just scooting up the hand to make life easier on the pinky. The other thing is keeping your hand close to the neck of the violin. So I think another problem that people have, and definitely that I had, was that my hand would kind of face this way. Like it would my palm would face me. And then because of that, my pinky was really far out here, and it would have to really stretch, even though I'm like up enough. So if I'm like out there, it's still going to have trouble curving. So what really helps with that is taking your hand, and instead of facing your palm at you, you face it more toward the neck of the violin, which brings this part of your hand closer to the neck of the violin, and then curves this finger. You see how my pinky curves the more I do that? From out here, it starts to go straight. And if I bring it in, it curves more. And those are honestly the two things that I really recommend when I'm teaching my students to curve their pinky. I don't think there's anything else that I really talk about. So yeah, I guess that's pretty much it. Just keeping your hand closer and scooting the hand forward. And then using simple exercises to build the strength of the pinky and get it more used to curving so that it becomes more of a habit. You may find that because you're scooting your hand up, these fingers, you'll have to really check on the first three to make sure that they don't move forward and become sharp. But it's definitely worth it. Having a curved pinky helps with vibrato. See a locked pinky? You can still do it, but it really limits your movement. I find that it makes it easier to do trills. Not that we try to ever do those with the pinky, but sometimes we have no choice. And it helps with double stops too, like for example, the opening chords of the chaconne. That first one is tricky. You're on the G string, then you have a low 2 on the D string. It's like, yeah. I remember actually trying to do that with a locked pinky, and my intonation was pretty bad. This chord. I just find that my intonation is a lot more consistent with a curved pinky. So that is my spiel on, like I said, a passionate issue. And I do want to acknowledge that I do feel that it's very hard for many people with small hands to pull this off. So it's not the end of the world. I've seen many professional violinists with a locking pinky, but it's my opinion that it really helps to curve it. And that is just how you can curve it if you want to learn how to do that. So thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video.